So obviously we want our character to attack us when he gets near rather than just kind of push up against us forever, as he does when he runs after us. There are two ways we can do this. One is more of a survival horror way, and the other is a bit more of a classic horror way. The classic horror way will whip you around to face the enemy as they play their attack animation, which kills you. The other won't restrict your movement, and if they hit you, it does damage, but you can continue to run away. We're going to set it up in the classic way, where he kind of whips around and kills you, because if you want to do the survival way, where he just kind of hits you, but you can keep running and it just takes health away, you can just skip the part that will freeze and rotate your character, and instead of killing the character, you can replace that code with just taking health off, and we already went over health. So first off, we're going to need an attack animation for our project. I'm going to use an animation from Unreal's Paragon assets they give away for free. So if we go to Epic Games, and then Marketplace, and then we search for Gideon, which is a character from their Paragon assets. This character has 201 animations included, and we are going to use one of his attack animations. So just go ahead and download it, and then you can hit add to project, and then choose the project you want to add it to. Alright, and once that is done, we should get a folder somewhere in here. Here it is, Paragon Gideon. And if we go into characters, heroes, Gideon, animations, we have all his animations right here. And the one I'm going to use is primary attack A medium. So if you look at it right here, we can open it up and watch it. So we have it open right here. Some of the textures, the shaders need to compile, which is why he has a lot of default materials, but we just have this kind of punch material. Maybe he's doing some spell, I'm not sure exactly, but it's going to work well enough for what we want. So what we have to do now, since we're not using the Gideon character model itself and just the animation, is we have to retarget the animation onto the mannequin. I have a more in-depth tutorial on retargeting animations on my YouTube channel, CobDev, which you can see the link at the bottom of the screen. So you can go check that out if you want a bit more detail on that. Alright, but let's go ahead and get to retargeting this. So we have this attack open. Let's go ahead and click on the skeleton tab right here. So we just opened his skeleton. And let's also open the skeleton for the mannequin. So I'm going to go content, close the search, mannequin, character, mesh, UE4 mannequin skeleton. So we have the two skeletons right here, and we just need to go into the retarget manager right here. If it's not there, you can go to window, retarget manager, and down here where it says select rig, we want to choose select humanoid rig. Choose that right there. We also, and we can save it, we also want to do that in the UE4 mannequin. So retarget manager, select rig, humanoid rig. Luckily with the Paragon asset, this is our only step because it can automatically match all the sources and targets together since it's a UE4 created skeleton. But for many other skeletons you might work with, it could be a lot more complicated, as these won't automatically choose all the exact bones it needs to. So if you're having trouble, or if you ever plan to do this with other skeletons, it would be a good idea to go check out that YouTube video on my channel. Now in the mannequin, it should also automatically, yeah, everything looks good. You can see everything matches up. If you needed to change anything, you would just select it and choose it, but just make sure it matches. So luckily it's a little easier for us here. So if we go back to content, Paragon Gideon, characters, heroes, Gideon, animations, and we could find that animation again, attack, primary attack A medium, and you could do this with any animation you want, since the skeleton now matches up. Any animation should work, but we can just right click and choose retarget anim assets, and then duplicate anim assets and retarget. We now have this option here on the left that wouldn't have been there before if you hadn't done this first step, which we can select, and you can see the source, which is our Gideon, and our target, which is the UE4 mannequin, and we can go ahead and click retarget. So now it says primary attack A medium duplicated to game/mannequin character, etc. And it puts it right in our content browser. We open it up, and we can see now we have the Gideon animation on our mannequin. So luckily, this went very smoothly. All right, but we only need this animation from the mannequin's waist up, because he will be walking and running, and we don't want his feet to just start sliding around like this as he moves around when he starts the animation. This step might only be necessary for the people who will be doing it where he continues to chase you while he hits you and it just does damage and nothing is locked into position, but just in case we'll do it for our classic as well, even though he will be stopping to hit you because you will be locked into the animation. So to do this, before we start, let's drag it into our mannequin. So I'm going to click this sources panel button right here so we can just kind of get a list view of everything. I'm going to open up mannequin, and I'm just going to drag it into mannequin animations, which is the same folder as just going here, mannequin animations, and now it is here, primary attack A medium. So to get this from the waist up only, we are going to right click and we are going to create a anim montage, and we can just leave the name as is. And let's open that up, and we're going to go over here to where it says Anim Slot Manager. If this is not here, you can go to Window, Anim Slot Manager, and we're going to add a slot, and the slot is going to be called Upper Body. And then we just want to make this animation set to Upper Body. So right here it says Default Group, Default Slot. We want to change it to Default Group, Upper Body. All right, so now let's open up our blueprint. So let's go to horror level, and then content, mannequin, animations. We have it right here, third person, anim BP. And by default, it already has a few things. It has this state machine that allows him to go from idling and running, and then a whole part where he jumps. So if we go to the anim graph right there, we need to create a node called layered blend per bone, and we're going to plug that into the result. So we have our base pose, and that's going to be this default state machine, and if you double click inside the state machine, this is this idle, jump, and run state machine, which just controls whether he's idling, running, or jumping. It's all set up for us, we don't need to mess with it. If you want to go back, just click anim graph right here, and the blend pose is 0. We want it to be the same thing except with the attack montage blended in from the waist up. Now, unfortunately, we can't duplicate this state machine, and we can't put it into two separate nodes. So we have to cache it as a reference. So drag this off and just search for cache and new save cached pose. And then we can name this, and I'm just going to name it default pose. Then we can call default pose. So you use cache pose default pose and plug it in like that. And this one we can duplicate and use as many times as we want. It's kind of like storing this state machine as a variable. Now for the second blend pose, we want to pass it through the slot upper body. So we can just search for slot, and it'll default to default slot. So we want to change it to upper body and then put that into blend poses 0. And the bone we want to blend by is the waist. So everything above his waist bone here is where we want to blend that attack animation. So we go to layer setup, to select this node, layer setup, 0, branch filters, add element, 0, bone name, and we need to make sure the bone name fits the exact bone name in the skeleton. So we can go back to the skeleton and just check where we want it. We're going to be using spine 01, so everything above this bone. So you can copy and paste if you'd like. I'll just type it in, spine _01, and that's all we have to do right there. So now our animation should be working properly. We need to check if our enemy is close enough to kill our player next. So we will do this with what is called a service. So let's go into our behavior tree for our AI right here. And we're going to go to Blackboard and add another bool. And this is going to be can attack player. If I can type in that in correctly. And we're going to add a service, new service right here. And it's going to work similar to a task. It's going to create a new one. We have to go back into our content, AI classic, and rename it right here. I'm going to call it BTS is close to player. And this is just going to check if we're close enough to the player to attack him. So I'm going to create a new folder called services and put it in there. I'm also going to close all these other tasks that we don't need anymore. So it's going to start out almost the same with a node called event receive activation AI. So when it's activated, and what we're going to do is get the distance from our AI to our player. So we have our control pawn here, which is the AI it's controlling, and we are going to get actor location, and we will use a node called distance vector. And for vector 2, we're going to be using our player's location. So we will get player character and get actor location. And that'll be our vector 2. This return value gives us a distance of how close or far the AI is to our character. So at first, we're just going to print this result as a string. So put that into in string, it'll convert it for us. For duration, I'm going to use get world delta seconds. So it essentially will just play once per frame. So it won't flood the entire left side of our screen. All right, so let's go back to our behavior tree. And to test this out, we're going to put our service on the can see player path. So it's only going to tick if we are close to the player, and check the distance if it is pursuing and can see the player. We don't really need it when he's investigating or when he cannot see the player. So we're going to right click, add service, and we have these two default ones, and then we have the one we just created, BTS is close to player. And we can choose how often it ticks and the random deviation of that, so it'll tick every 0.4 seconds to 0.6 seconds. I think that's fine as a default. And now, since it prints the string, when he sees us, it'll be able to tell us how close he is. And before we get started, I'm once again going to set his chase speed to walking, so we can have a bit more time to kind of look at that distance. So once he sees us and starts chasing us, we should get a print string in the upper left showing the distance. Yeah, there it is. So you see as he gets closer, it goes down, and we got to find a number we want when he of the maximum length it can be before he attacks us. So let's keep an eye on it, and let's say I want him to attack us at about that distance, so maybe like 125 or 100 looks about right. Of course, it goes so fast it's kind of hard to tell. It's kind of flashing when I use get world delta seconds, so I can just delete it and have it flood the left side of the screen if I want. And where'd he go? There he is. And then, let me see. Yeah, maybe something like 125. So let's go back to the service. And we just have to now check if this distance is less than or equal to 125. So we will get a less than or equal to float by float. And for our number here, we're going to promote this to a variable, and we are going to call this distance to attack. Make it editable, and the number will be 125. This is so in the behavior tree, we can adjust it if we want fairly easily. We're going to branch right here. Actually, we don't need a branch, because what we're gonna do is set value as bool, set Blackboard value as bool, and the key we'll be setting is our new can attack player boolean. So let's promote it to a variable, call it can attack player key, make it editable, of course, and the value will just come from this boolean right here. So now in our BT Classic, this service will tick and this boolean will change accordingly, whether it can or cannot attack. Of course, we have to change the can attack player key to our can attack player boolean, and the distance to attack we can adjust as needed in case we don't like 125. So of course, once this boolean is changed, nothing will happen in the world, so we need to actually create an event for that. So let's go inside our character, our AA Classic character, and let's make a custom event, and we will call this kill player. First thing we want to do is play a montage, and the montage we will be playing is the montage we created, the primary attack A medium montage. Make sure you're choosing the one for the mannequin and not Gideon's. They're called the same thing, but I can kind of see in a little preview here that that's the mannequin and this one's Gideon's, so choosing the mannequin one. And then the in skeletal mesh component is just our mesh right here. You can adjust the play rate, how fast the animation plays, or the starting position, but for now, this is all good. We also need to whip our player around to view the camera, or to view the AI, sorry. When this happens, of course, if you're making the survival type, you don't have to do this part. You would just play the montage, and then in our player, you would just apply damage instead. If we go into Game BP, level 1, L1 character, event graph, we can create a new custom event for this. So we'll do it down here, custom event, and it will be called caught by enemy. And of course, if you want to do the type where it just takes health, all you have to do is take out BPC health and call the remove health function, and then just type in an amount, and that would just take away some health. But for the more classic type, we need an input to this called enemy, and this will be of type pawn object reference, so you know what enemy caught us in case there are multiple. First off, we will disable movement from our character movement, get player controller. We need to disable look input. Well, disable input, we need that as well. Make sure the player controller goes into the player controller, not the target. And then get look input and set ignore look input is what I meant, and set that to true. Then we want another custom event called rotate to enemy. And this is going to be called on a timer, which is why we need it as a second custom event. So back here in caught by enemy, we will set timer by event, and the event we want is our rotate to enemy. We can set our time to something fairly low, like 0.01, and choose looping to true. And this is where we actually need to rotate our character to look at the enemy, so the enemy can attack us. We will get the player controller, and we're going to set the control rotation, and we're going to use our handy dandy find look at rotation node. The start will be our location, so get actor location with the target as self, and the target will come from the enemy that attacks us. So we'll drag off enemy, get actor location, and this is our target. and the return value will be the new rotation. Sorry, not directly the new rotation, because we need to interpolate it over time, which is the whole point of the timer. So we are going to get a r_interp2, or rotation interp2, and this will be the target. The current will just be our player controller, and we will get control rotation. So whatever our current rotation is, that's the current. Delta time will be get world delta seconds, and our interp speed can be whatever we want. How fast it's going to be, I'm just going to choose 10. Now we need to end this timer once we are fully looking at the character, so it doesn't just go on forever. So we will add an if statement or a branch after set control rotation, and we just need to get the control rotation. So I'm going to copy and paste get player controller, get control rotation, and we want to see if this is equal to this find look at rotation node. So we will get a equal rotator, and we'll ask if it's equal to this find look at rotation to see if we successfully turned all the way. And then this is the tolerance, the error tolerance, and we can just make it something like 1 degree. So we'll always get a success. Put that into the branch. So if this is true, we want to stop the timer. If it's false, we do nothing because it means we are still turning. So if it's true, we got to clear this timer, and since we set it by an event, we don't have the option just to call clear timer, because it only has clear timer by function name. We have to clear and invalidate timer by handle, and the handle comes from the output of this set timer. So it knows that this is the timer we need to clear. After this, after we finish rotating, we want to call that custom event from our AI classic kill player, so it plays the montage, but we won't only want to do it once because it'll start to overlap itself. So if we call a do once node, and then off of completed, we want to play that montage, so we have to cast to AI classic, which is our AI. The object will come from this enemy right here. You can use a reroute node to clean this up a bit. And then as AI classic, we need to get the custom event, which is called kill player. So we'll just call kill player. Of course, we want to reset this do once node because if we restart the game, it won't stop if you do restart it within the game itself. So once we are caught by an enemy again, this will reset. This is the easiest way to just reset that. So we will call a sequence. The first thing it'll do is all this, and once it's done setting the timer, since that's the last thing in sequence 1, it'll then reset the do once node. So if we are caught by an enemy again, it will once again be able to kill the player. Okay, so I think all that is set up. Try to get a good habit of commenting things out, so we'll call that caught by enemy, since this whole thing became kind of a mess. Now we just need a way to actually call this custom event, because nothing calls it at the moment. So let's go into the behavior tree, and we need a new selector. And this selector is actually going to be the new can see player. So we're going to call it the same thing, can see player. And we're going to channel it like that. We're going to move this Blackboard condition to here, same with the service. And this one is no longer can see player, but it's can see player plus player, cannot type, player is out of range. And then we need a new sequence off of this called player in range. So if we are pursuing the player, we can see the player. We have 2 more options after this. If it's out of range, which means we chase him, but if he's in range, then we kill him. Of course, we need a blackboard selector for this. Decorator, I mean. So add decorator, blackboard, and the condition is if can attack player is not set, which means we are out of range, and then observer reports will be both. And if it's in range, we add a blackboard decorator, and this is if can attack player is set, and observer reports will be both. So first off, we're going to set the speed. We're going to set his speed to 0, so because we want him to stand still. And then we are going to call a new task for killing the player. So create a new task, BT task blueprint base. Go back into AI, classic. We're going to rename it BT kill player and put it into tasks. Open it up. As always, event receive execute AI. And we just need to go into our L1 character, and we're just going to call this custom event caught by enemy since we have it all set up in there. So cast to L1 character, get player character for object, and as L1 character we call caught by enemy. The enemy we are caught by is the controlled pawn. Then we will finish the execute. Oop, not finish abort. Finish, execute, success will be success. We can also put one under cast failed with success as false. And compile and save. And let's add it to our behavior tree. So back in the behavior tree, we set the speed to 0 if the player is in range, and then we will kill the player. Now, since this is a sequence, as soon as kill player is called, it's going to go back to set speed and call kill player over and over and over again, and it's just going to start repeating itself, which can cause bugs. So since he is killing the player, we are going to call another sequence with a wait node in it. The wait can be whatever time you want, as long as it's above 0. And then we're just going to right click, add decorator, loop. And the loop is going to be infinite. So it'll just infinitely loop this wait sequence because our player will be killed. What you also can do is figure out the time it takes to kill the player in case you're making something multiplayer, or you definitely wouldn't want this if you're doing this system where he just attacks you and takes health away and you don't get locked in the animation. This is just if he kills you and the game ends. But you can definitely just add a wait node for how long it takes to kill the player and then send him back to the patrolling mode or something like that. But for now, we're just going to have him wait infinitely. Okay, so let's test it out. So what should happen is he patrols because he is not pursuing the player. He then sees us, which changed him to pursuing player and can see player. We will be out of range when it starts, so he will play jump scare audio, set speed to run, but right now it's set to walk, and then chases us. And then once we are in range, we set the speed to 0, kill the player, and then loop an infinite wait so that he just stays there forever. So let's test this out. What it also should do is disable our movement, disable our input, and make us look at the enemy, and then the enemy should play his animation. So let's test this all out. So when the enemy sees us, we're going to turn around and see if it rotates correctly when it catches us, which it does. There we go. We can no longer move, we can't look around. He has killed us. We obviously need some kind of fade to black and game over screen. Let's test this again to make sure the distance looks good of his range to kill us. So he kills us when he gets that close. We can adjust this if we go into our BTS is close to player, and we can change distance to attack. Let's do something drastic at first, like 500. So let's try that. And he can kill us from that distance, which of course is absurd. So I'm going to change this back to 125 because I think that worked pretty well. Okay, so before we wrap this up, let's just create a fade to black and a restart button, since it should go relatively quick. So let's go into UMG and let's create a new widget called W Game Over. Open it up. We're going to add a image, anchor it to the full screen with all the offsets at 0. And let's just tint the image completely black. And then we can add some text in the center, just doing this relatively quickly. So center, position X and Y both 0, alignment 0.5 and 0.5, so it's perfectly centered. And size to context, I'll just set that to true, so the size will be however big it needs it to be. And I'll just type in game over. Zoom in a bit so we can see. Make this size something big. Let's use our Calibri font maybe in bold. Sure, something like that. And then I'm gonna add a button below it. So anchor to the bottom middle. Alignment X 0.5 and position X 0, 0. Well, let's make that something like -200, and we can increase the size of this a bit, something like 150 by 600, and then I'm going to drag it up a bit more. Okay, I'm going to add some text on top of that button that just says restart. Make the text black so you can see it, and maybe a little bigger. All right, so something just kind of quick. Now let's make an animation to actually like fade this black in. So let's press animation, let's call it fade in. If we select fade in, we can add a track. So let's select the image, which is our black background image, add track, and we'll have it right here since we have it selected. And now that it's in our track, we can add a track specific to the image, and we want to add one for render opacity. So let's set render opacity to 0 at start, and then let's go to 1 second and make the opacity 1. So it just fades in over the time of 1 second. And then after it fades in, let's fade in the game over and restart buttons. So let's add the game over text to the track. We have our text right here, and then the button as well. So now we have our button, image, and text. Actually, let's just rename these so it becomes a little less confusing. So black background, game over text, and restart button. There. Now they're named correctly, and it'll make it a bit easier. So we already have our black background fade in over 1 second. I'm gonna add another second and just add another key so nothing happens within this second. And then over the second to third second, I will second to third second, I will fade in the game over and restart. So at the beginning, the restart button, add track for render opacity and set it to 0. And then the same with the game over text. Render opacity 0. Now once we get to 2 seconds, I'm going to add another key for both of these. So game over text, add a key, which is still at 0. Restart button, add a key, still at 0. And then at 3 seconds, I will increase these to 1, which will add the key automatically, and add the keys to 1. So we can play the animation just to test this out. I'm going to hit play, fade to black, and then the buttons fade in. Okay, perfect. So something really simple. You can do whatever you want with this. I'm just trying to do something kind of quick so we can wrap up the episode. So let's go to the graph, an event construct, which is essentially the same as the begin play. We will just call play animation. The animation will be this fade in animation we just created. Start time 0, so it starts at the beginning. Number of loops to play 1, play mode forward, etc. And then when we press the restart button, so on released, we just want to restart the level. So we will do this by getting a open level, and it needs the level name. So we will get current level name, and that will be our level name. So we just know to restart whatever level we are currently inside. Cool, so now we just need to create this widget once our enemy kills us. So if we go to our AI classic character, we have this kill player play montage, and once the montage is completed, we can create the widget. And then it's W game over, and then we will add to viewport. After that, we want to get the player controller, and we want to set, show mouse cursor to true so that we can click on the button. And then we also want to set input mode to UI only, so we can easily interact with the UI without accidentally interacting with anything in the world. We can choose a widget to focus, which will just be the game over widget. All right, so this should work, but as you can see, I'll just show you. We're gonna have him catch us. And creates the widget, fades to black, and the buttons fade in. Perfect, looks good. And if I hit restart, it should restart the level we're currently in, which is level 1. And it does. Now there's one issue here, and that's that we are inside the floor. And that is because we don't have a player start. So if we come over here to the left, if you don't see it, you can just search for it, player start. And just drag it wherever you want the player to spawn in on the world. And we've just been spawning in at the current camera location, but you can change it here to default player start, and now we will start in that location no matter where our camera is. See? And it should work again when we restart the level. Restart, and we are in that location. But we have a problem. We can't move and we can't look around because we disabled that. So let's open our level blueprint. So go here to blueprints, open level blueprint, and we have our sequence. We have our begin play here, sorry, and we want to create a sequence so we can do things in order. And all this post-process stuff we did, I'm going to move it to the second one. Before we do that, we are going to enable all the input and everything. But instead of typing it all out, I'm just going to copy and paste it from our toggle inventory. So if we go to our content, game BP, player controller, we have our toggle inventory custom event, and we have all these things like set movement mode, reset ignore look input. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. So get player character movement, set movement mode, reset look ignore input, show mouse cursor to false. We're going to have to replace this inside of it though. And set input mode to game only. So copy and then go into our level blueprint and paste. And then we'll just move this over here. So first off, we set our movement mode to walking, so our movement is re-enabled. We reset our look ignore input, but that comes from the player controller. So get the player controller and put that in for the target. And we will also have to grab the show mouse cursor from player controller. So set show mouse cursor to false. And then we have our set input mode game only, which also comes from our player controller. Okay, so now the begin play will be called every time that we begin play, so it'll just automatically throw this in here. And it should also work when we reset the level. The begin play will be called once again. So let's have him see us and attack us. And we hit restart, and we can move and look around, and everything should be working. Perfect. All right, we have a functional way to get caught by our enemy and restart the game when he kills us. There's only a few things left to make this a bit more fleshed out. And next episode we worked on hiding. So we want to make it so if our AI sees you go into something like a locker, it is not a failsafe, and he'll open the locker and attack you, because it's a little disappointing if you can just hide in the locker while he's chasing you and nothing happens. And what else we got? And we need to have the AI be able to open doors. We don't just want to have a blank doorway here. We want to have our AI be able to go through them. And that'll be it for the AI. So 2 more episodes on AI. That'll be it for this episode, and I will see you in the next one.